Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome to Modern Warfare in Depth. In today's episode, we're going to be reviewing the MP5 Beast SMG. And no, that's not a typo because the MP5 is an actual beast of a weapon. The MP5 is probably the best overall SMG in Modern Warfare, and past that, it's definitely a top 3 overall weapon, but it certainly isn't flawless. The MP5 does have some drawbacks, some things that are some scenarios in which it doesn't perform well, so it's not a one-size-fits-all weapon, but it's a one-size-fits most kind of weapon. And before we jump into the damages today, I do want to remind you that I am giving away a 2080 Ti graphics card. You've probably heard this about 14 times now. I'm going to be mentioning it 14 more, but that giveaway is ongoing. Links below. Let's talk about the damage of the MP5, and this is going to be a longer section than normal because there's 2 damages for the different type of ammunition. The regular 9mm ammo that it shoots will deal 34 damage up close and then decrease down to 19 at a distance, meaning that's 3 to 6 shots to kill, and this applies to the chest and the torso. So pretty much anywhere in what you would call the body is going to grant this damage. It does have 2 unique damage areas, being the head and the limbs. The head will deal 55 damage up close and decrease to 30 at a distance, and the limbs will deal 30 up close and decrease down to 17 at a distance. And I know that these numbers are different than what Exclusive Ace had like 2 or 3 months ago, but it's been patched since then. And just to prove you all that I'm not totally crazy, here's the MP5 killing people into headshots. It really can do this. Go to private match, try it out. I got a bunch of 2 headshot kills. I didn't expect it, but that's how it performs. However, even with just the 9mm rounds, the MP5 still puts out a surprising amount of damage for an SMG. These damage numbers are higher than that of some of the rifles in Modern Warfare, and they can 3-shot kill, which is quite nice. But let's talk about the 10mm rounds. How much do those help? Well, the 10mm damage for the chest and torso increases slightly. It's still 34 for the maximum, but it decreases down only to 21, which means it's now a 3 to 5 shot kill. It retains the same body multipliers for chest and torso, and the head and limbs tell a pretty similar story. The head is still basically a 2-shot or 3-shot kill depending on your range, so you can't get 1-shot headshots with this. That would be broken. The limbs are 30 to 18, so 1 less shot at long range is there. And the general story behind 10mm rounds, adding them to your weapon, is that 10mm rounds effectively get you 1 less shot to kill at all ranges except point blank. Up close in that 3-shot kill range, it's not going to make any difference whether you have 10mm rounds or 9mm rounds. It's going to be the same 3-shot kill. However, once enemies get outside of that range, you're going to have 1 more shot to kill, 2 more, kind of depends on the range. So 10mm rounds don't get you better 3-shot kill range at all, just longer ranges are better for everything else. It's an overall good attachment that I do recommend. I kind of tried to go without it. I kind of tried to not do 10mm rounds for a long time. However, I just kept coming back to them because they just kind of work. Let's talk about the 3-shot kill ranges on the base weapon, and I do want to let you know that the base 3-shot kill range is the same no matter what kind of ammo you put on there. That's going to be 13 meters, which isn't bad for a 3-shot kill. The FSS light barrel is going to decrease down that to 10 meters. The monolithic integral suppressor doesn't change your range whatsoever, and you get a free suppressor at 13 meters. We'll talk about ADS in a little bit. The FSS mini, it will drastically reduce your range down to 9mm, and the subsonic suppressed barrel, which is still one of my favorite attachments on the weapon, will significantly decrease your range down to 8 meters. And I put a little suppressor right there because, a little asterisk, because that one has integrated suppression and no enemy skulls and a lot of cool stuff. You get a lot of benefits for trading off that range, but that range trade-off is pretty brutal. In order to optimize your MP5 and play with it the way that it was intended to be played with, you want to try to stay within the 3-shot range. Going for headshots is nice too because you can 2-tap to the head. I noticed a lot of better players, people that are just honestly better than me, do that. It's a fantastic strategy. I'd recommend it to anybody. Long-range MP5 is workable, but still not ideal. Rate of fire on this weapon is pretty similar between the 2 ammo types. I got 820 RPM for the 9mm ammo and slightly less, ever so slightly less, at 810 RPM for the 10mm ammo. Both of these are slightly faster than average, both for SMGs and in general in Modern Warfare, but they're not like crazy fast. They're just a little bit above average. So when it comes to finally calculating our time to kill, what we're going to get is that this is the fastest killing SMG in Modern Warfare if you hit your body or headshots. So the rate of fire is slightly faster than average, the damage is very high, and when you combine those two, you get a very fast killing submachine gun. If you hit 3 body shots in a row up close or 2 headshots in a row up close, it's going to be a melt machine no matter what kind of ammo you're using. And if you're doing this at longer ranges, the 10mm is kind of nice to keep that in check too. The rest of the episode has a lot going on with aim down sights and sprint out because there's a lot of different attachments. Unfortunately, I don't have another fun or funny skit for you today. I'm just kind of... Things are chaos here. Things are not good for me. I can't film it. I'm just going to ask you to please support me by visiting the Astro Gaming website via the link below and picking up something nice for yourself. The link will give you 5% off of all Astro products. I made this episode using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Astro and or Logitech products. I use them literally every day. So I'd tell you to go check out some A40s. They will last you a lifetime. All right, so let's move on to the rest of the episode. MP5 aim down sights times. The base is 200, which is standard for SMGs. The FSS light barrel, I measured at 200 again, but it was a little bit close, and there's some sort of starting, stopping, frame rounding there. Maybe it's a little bit faster, but it's close on this one. Monolithic integral suppressor is a little bit slower than that at 233, not the biggest penalty. The FSS mini barrel is surprisingly fast at 167 milliseconds. That's effectively 2 frames faster, which will make a difference when you're kind of splitting hairs like this. And the subsonic integral suppressor only requires 1 more frame to aim down sights to get all those nice benefits, so it's not a particularly slow attachment. The tac laser is also very fast at 167 milliseconds. 45 round mags only require 1 more frame, 216. Stippled, I was not able to get a measured difference on here. If it's less than base, it's not by much. It's not enough for the frame rounding to take effect. The FSS close quarters combat stock is the fastest aiming down sight stock at 167 milliseconds. That's the same as the tac laser and the short barrel. However, the tactical collapsible stock is 183 milliseconds, only 1 frame slower than the one above it, but it also gives you a move speed bonus, which can be nice to offset the move speed penalty of the 45 round mag should you choose to use it. However, it's also going to increase your recoil, which isn't ideal, but it's still not too bad given that it's an up-close kind of weapon. Sprint out times are more in line what you would expect with an SMG. Base is 133 milliseconds, and when it comes to stippled and 5 milliwatt laser, stippled did something this time. They're both 100 milliseconds, so about 2 frames faster for each one of those right there. And when it comes to maxing and minimizing this gun, the minimum aim down sights time I was able to get is 133 milliseconds, which is very fast in my opinion. And the minimum sprint out time is only 100 milliseconds. So basically 1 sprint out affecting attachment and you are good to go on this one. You don't need to stack them at all. The overall lesson or story behind the aim down sights and sprint out times is that it doesn't take many of the right attachments to maximize both your aim down sights, or minimize is a more appropriate word, your aim down sights and sprint out time on the MP5. You get optimal benefit without you having to use all of the attachment slots. You'll still have things left over for other modifications. I do want to briefly talk about the subsonic integral suppressor. This barrel will make your bullets invisible, so you have no visible tracers, and it will remove enemy skulls, much like the blackout rounds with the M13. It's effectively the M13 suppressed barrel and 300 blackout rounds all rolled into one attachment. So you get a suppressor, you get invisible bullets, and your enemies can't see where their teammates are dying at. So you have a very powerful attachment here, with the only drawback being 1 frame slower aiming down sights time and a pretty miserable penalty to your range. In my opinion, this is an incredibly powerful attachment, but it works best against bad players. Really smart, sophisticated players aren't going to care how suppressed your weapon is. They're going to notice when their teammates die. But if you're running up against a bunch of baddies, or you want to flank a whole lot in ground war even, if they don't notice those little death skulls popping up, then you might be able to get a flank on people. I've kind of tried to offset the range and some of the poor damage with 10mm rounds, and that works a little bit, but it's not a perfect solution. One of the attachments that I loved was the FSS mini barrel. It's amazingly fast. It makes my gun so snappy, which makes me so happy. I can rush, I can be aggressive, I can tear people up, but it will kick more. And I'm pretty poor at recoil control, so that is a realistic downside for me. Speaking of recoil, the MP5 recoil is unusual because it's a little bit more horizontal than most most of the other weapons. Most of the other weapons kick vertically. I found the vertical recoil on the MP5 to be extraordinarily easy to control, but it will kick both left and right somewhat unpredictably. So in my opinion, it's best to just sort of line up your first shot, pull down on the stick to keep the vertical recoil in check, and the horizontal, it'll bounce around left and right, but it'll take care of itself in time. And it's not too extreme. You'll be able to map people really, really well with this weapon. I wouldn't have to worry about that. And I generally don't find it necessary to use recoil reducing attachments on this weapon, but if I were to pick one, I would probably go with the commando grip. That'll cut that annoying horizontal recoil and make the weapon perform much better overall, but I don't think you're going to need that. Speaking of not needing things, the iron sights are perfect for their intended range of use. There is no reason to use the dot sight on this weapon. Well, there's a ... so there's more coming. But the iron sights are great. They're clear. We have a good, nice, clear hind and foresight. The gun doesn't block too much of your vision. When you flinch, it's not too bad. You can see what you're aiming at. You can reacquire targets. I had a good time with them. They're not perfect for long range, but up close they're fine. If you're going to be playing ground war or something where you really need some range, I had the best luck with the canted hybrid. That way I can have like 3.5 zoom on the longer zoom sight, the ACOG for lack of a better word, and then I can swap over to close quarters combat as needed. This is not really optimal because it kind of slows the SMG down a little bit, but it does work for that mode. When it comes to magazine attachments other than the 10mm, you can extend your 9mm mags up to 45 rounds, and it's not a bad option at all. Even up close, you're going to burn through these really quickly. Your intention is to get those 3-shot kills with this gun, and the way I play, I spray a lot. So I found this to be really useful on a lot of my classes. Reload times is a little bit odd. This one reload full and empty at the exact same amount of time, so it doesn't matter if you empty your mag or still have some bullets in there. They're both going to be 1.75 seconds, which is, it's okay for an SMG. It's not amazing, it's okay. And on the topic of ammo, you'll find 9mm ammo from dead enemies everywhere. There's so many 9mm guns, 9mm conversion kits. 9mm is very easy to find, not as much 10mm. Now the 10mm MP5 is a popular weapon, so if you're playing Shoot House, you'll probably pick some up even from your own body in that map. So you will find some 10mm laying around. 9mm is going to be much more common. I don't know what kind of game mode that you need to take that in consideration for, but it is a thing. And in my opinion, now we're down to the part of the opinion episode where I get to be wrong, but I do get to recommend some classes. The MP5 is an excellent weapon because it dominates close quarters combat time to kill while still being easy to use and relatively fast and snappy. It's not the fastest SMG, but it's a fast SMG. It doesn't shoot the fastest, but it does shoot fast. I think it does deal the highest damage. It's tied with the Bison on that one, but shoots faster, of course. It has low recoil, it's predictable, there's a lot of nice attachments and kitting you can do with it. You can increase its range, change the ammo. There's a lot you can do with the MP5 to make it easy to use, as if it isn't already easy to use, and still have that very strong, very competitive time to kill. This is basically the M4A1 of SMGs, and it'll actually beat an M4 up close. When it comes to raw time to kill, like face-checking people, a good MP5 will beat a good M4. Now, I've said the M4 is OP. If you're not, like good with your MP5, if you miss your shots, if your flinch messes you up, if the other guy has really good aim, yeah, the M4 will hose you. But in a good player versus good player, that MP5 is going to win all the time. It's a very strong gun. And I do want to point out that getting some long-range headshots can be really filthy too. You can drastically lower your time to kill and map people from further ranges than they would ever expect if you can squeeze in a few headshots with the MP5, especially if you've got the 10mm rounds for the extra range. And now finally, time for me to recommend two classes that I think will perform very well for all of you. The first one is my best speed class. You're going to want to run the FSS mini barrel, the collapsible stock, and 45 round mags. Typically I would avoid the collapsible stock, but I want the 45 round mags because I'm going to be aggressive, spraying like crazy. I'm going to need the bullet. I'm going to kill bullets. I'm going to need to kill multiple enemies at a time, so I'll really need those 15 extra rounds, but they'll slow me down a little bit in movement speed. However, the collapsible stock will compensate for that as well while increasing ADS. Then I want to run sleight of hand so I can reload really fast and snappy like, and finally put a 5mm laser on there so that I can maximize my sprint out, minimize is the right word, I'm getting those backwards today, minimize the sprint out time with only one attachment, which is awesome. It also tightens up hip fire, gives me a nice a visual thing that I can use to line up shots with, and this is a very strong class. The only downside to it is that it doesn't have the best range, no doubt, and it does kick a little bit much. It's a little bit of a higher recoil class, but this is not designed for long range. You are supposed to get up in people's faces and play hyper aggressive with this, and this will work fine, and you don't need 10mm rounds for up close and personal. The next class is the stealth class I'm going to recommend with the subsonic integral suppressor as your first attachment. That's pretty much what you have to run the stealth class. That gets you no enemy skulls, lower sound, and they can't see your bullets, which is all great. After that, I'm going to run the FSS close quarters combat stock so that I can aim down sights faster, but I'm also not losing any recoil. 10mm rounds to help increase the range somewhat. It's not going to increase my 3-shot kill range, but it'll help my long range potential pretty significantly. So they do help on this class. I'm going to run commando grip on this one so that I can further minimize my recoil because I only have 30 rounds instead of 45, and I really need them to hit and count. So that kind of makes the gun a little bit more lasery. And again, sleight of hand, because when I'm mowing through a big group of people using this in ground war or some other place, I'm going to need to reload really, really fast, and that can be helpful to me and to you. And no optical attachments on any of these. All right, guys, that is all for today. I hope that you enjoyed the MP5 episode. It's roughly advertisement free with the Astro stuff, but I do hope you guys go click the link down there at least. Just clicking through the link and looking around the site makes me look like a fantastic sponsor, and I really have used the products for close to a decade now, so I can't recommend them more highly enough. And the next episode is going to be on the AUG, which again might be a little bit longer, multiple ammo types. Hopefully I can get it out quickly. And yeah, hope you enjoyed everything. Drifter out.
We are losing ground. Focus. Crush them. Allied UAV overhead. Enemy UAV. Contact. They have reached the halfway point. Get moving. Lead is ours. Keep pushing. Enemy UAV overhead. UAV is ready for flyover. This is Falcon 3-0. Good copy. UAV beginning flyover. Signal lost. UAV is down.